This is the second episode of the podcast series, video podcast series, Decolonizing the Mind, the Final Frontier of Colonialism. Let me first thank people who gave me feedback on the first video. One important one is the idea that we promote of a new world civilization should not be limited to peace, love, and prosperity, but also include justice and the rebalancing of the relationship between humans and nature. And also thanks for feedback on the PowerPoint presentation, the design, and the format. So this second episode um, is one that deals with the attack by Hamas and the other resistance forces on October 7. And if we look at the way the attack was conducted, the facts are well known. The wall was torn down, blown up. The Palestinians on motorbikes riding into the villages occupied by Israel. Spectacular paragliders flying over the wall and landing into the other side of occupied Palestine, the attack on military barracks of the Israeli Defense Force, IDF, and the abduction of a general in his pants, and the killing of people at the music festival and in the kibbutz. The fighters of the resistance kept the hostages in houses there, and it turns out now that the IDF killed their own Israeli hostages by firing on those houses, and it tells you something about the future of this tragedy. And the end result was 229 people abducted and thousands Israelis killed. It was unheard of, this. Now, to understand this attack, you have to understand the strategy of the liberation movement in two phases. One is 1964, with the foundation of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the ending of the armed resistance with the Oslo Accords in 1993 between the PLO and Israel under the auspicion of the United States. The strategy of armed liberation of PLO consists of attacks in Israel, hijacking of planes, and even the attack of the Olympics in Munich. And the results of the struggle was that the PLO succeeded in putting the Palestinian suffering on the world agenda. And it forced Israel and the West to seek a solution. And with the Oslo Accords, there was a hope of a two-state solution. But here is the problem. The borders were not fixed. They were part of negotiations. And basically it turns out that the Palestinian state would be an inferior state that would be controlled by a superior state, Israel. Its infrastructure, its defense, its police, the whole state would be subservient to the state of Israel. And meanwhile, Israel created facts on the ground by setting up settlements within the West Bank and shrinking basically the land that would become part of the new Palestinian state. So it turned out that the politics of the Oslo Accords was the politics of defeat. They established a national Palestinian National Authority as a government, subsidized by the US and the European Union with hundreds of million people, 150,000 people on their payroll, no economic base, no independent economic base. Any society without an economic base won't exist. And even when they had general election in 2006, which Hamas won, and they nominated Ismail Haniyeh as the prime minister, that was sabotage the elections, and fighting was encouraged by the West between Hamas and Fatah. And now, after the defeat of the Oslo Accords, you have two visions. One is still the old two-state solution, and the other is a one-state solution in two versions. The Israeli versions of ethnic cleansings and the Palestinian versions of a free Palestine. Now, the one-state solution is from Israel, has a slogan, from the Euphrates to the Nile. And the concept behind it that, and Benjamin Netanyahu's party, Likud party, is a proponent of this idea of a greater Israel that runs from the Euphrates till the Nile. You could see it here, the Nile here, and the Euphrates. And it contains part of the current Israel, Jordan, Syria, until Iraq, and even parts of Egypt. And that was the old Israel, from the religious scripts. There's this idea, ludicrous idea, obviously, but this idea of a greater Israel is behind the strategy of the one-state solution that requires the ethnic cleansing of the state of Israel, of the Palestinians. And then you have another one-state solution, which is in the slogan, which is now popular in demonstrations, from the river to the sea. And that should be put against the slogan from the Euphrates to the Nile. And from the river to the sea means the Jordan River, which you can see here, to the Mediterranean Sea. And then this includes the state of Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. And it requires the dismantling of the apartheid state. Now, how can you defeat a strong military power like Israel? Now, the answer came from Lebanon. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon to attack the PLO, which was established there as its base for its operation. And at the end of the day, they were Israelis forced the PLO to move out of Lebanon. And the occupation of Lebanon led to a resistance. And in 1985, the Hezbollah movement was founded to fight the Israeli occupation. And finally, 15 years later, Israel was militarily defeated and leaves Lebanon in May 25. So the lesson was Israel can be defeated militarily. Israel is not invincible. So there is, even in Lebanon, a second lesson in the 2006 Lebanese war, when a new invasion occurred from Israel, and it led to a second defeat of the Israeli Defense Force. So now the idea that Israel can be militarily defeated takes hold in the minds of the Palestinian resistance. And therefore, they've articulated a strategy that Palestine can be free and will be free from the river to the sea. And there are some pillars, basically three pillars of their strategy. One is, you're not fighting an army, you're fighting an empire. Israel wouldn't last for a minute if the US stopped the 1 to 2 billion subsidies that they provide to Israel to beef up their army, to beef up their infrastructure, to beef up their intelligence. So when you conduct a fight against the Israeli army, you should know that you're not fighting only the Israeli army, you're fighting an empire. So the second element, or the third element of the strategy, is to build an army that could defeat the Israeli army. You need a people's army. It's not just a regular army. You need a people's army, but the people's army with all the infrastructure of a professional army: intelligence, technical infrastructure, command centers, weapons productions, training, all the things you need. And in the videos in the coming month, I will go into all these aspects. How did they do their training? How did they conduct their intelligence? And the last and major element of the strategy is the building of unity. First among Palestinians, then among the axis of resistance, those who are actually fighting the empire in Western Asia, formerly the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran, and then wider the unity among the 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. And remember, Al-Quds, Jerusalem, is the second important religious site for Muslims after Mecca. So you have the strategy and you put out the planning of battles. And one of the major planning was the tunnel infrastructure, which they built. It is a ingenious system, and it was invented by two leaders, one from Lebanon, Haj Imad Mugnieh, and the famous commander of the Quds force of Iran, General Qasem Soleimani. They came up with this idea of a 360-kilometer underground tunnel. It's amazing things which was digged under the ground, which have the infrastructure for their own telecommunications. So they have a telephone infrastructure with a wired cable which Israel can't tap into. They are sometimes even so wide that a car can be driven in it. They set up command centers for unity. This is a statement of October 28 put out by Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. They have a general command. And they work together, and the five powers had a leadership meeting on last Saturday, where they discussed the course of how to fight the aggression after the October 7th attack. Now, the plan of the attack, it was conducted and prepared in top secrecy, in the training, intelligence gathering, and it turns out now that there were people in the IDF themselves that supported Hamas. You won't hear about it in the Western press, but there are reports in the Arab press, and I'll come to it in the coming episodes. I'll give you bits and pieces of it. And the interesting thing is that once the operation started, many Palestinians who were not part of the preparation and the training wanted to join in. And they abducted also people in Gaza without coordination with Hamas or Islamic Jihad. And later on, Hamas had to try to get those people from the individuals and the small groups that on their own had went into the struggle. And the important thing is that within their planning of October 70, they knew that there would be a response, a barbaric response from Israel. They knew it. And they knew that they had to prepare for that response, which they themselves see as the final battle for the liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. So this is the main lines of the analysis, and I'll come back to bits and pieces in the coming weeks and days. But the next episode, I will go into the Israeli response, the immediate response of the population, the immediate response of the leaders, and the long-term strategy from the leaders for the survival of Israel. So that is the third episode. This analysis is based on the book, and I refer to the paragraph 13.4.3.6, where I discuss the strategy of the resistance. You could download the PowerPoint of the website, Sonder Hira, and the website tells you also how you can support this channel by subscribing, hitting the subscribe button of the video, share and promote the video among friends, families, and colleagues, get involved in discussion group, and make a financial donation if you are able to. Now, if you look at how, let me stop the sharing, yes, how we will move forward in the coming, and how the world will move forward in the coming weeks and months, you have to understand the total geopolitics that is going on now. So for the next episode, I'll go to the Israeli response. Thanks.